Today we go where no one dares to go, the cold. More specifically, the region of Eastern Europe. We're going to see what these marshy plains looked like before any medieval state emerged to dominate it. Unfortunately, there are only a handful of primary sources from this time, but we'll do our best to educate and have as little of it go over your head as possible. So, Davei Nashiam. So Scythians inhabited half of modern Ukraine and beyond for most of the first millennium before Christ. Each man was a warrior, expert of the horse and war. They even were able to repel the Achaemenid Empire, which was enormous. They practiced an aristocracy. The wealthy had access to gold, turquoise, and amber ornaments. The wealthiest of these royal states lived in Crimea and this isthmus, and this group of royal states came to be ruled by a king who passed his role to his son. By the 5th century of BC, the kings began to intermarry with Greeks. In 339 BC, the king was killed by the uniter of Greece, Philip II, and the state entered a serious decline. The kingship ended in the 100s of BC. From 300 to 700, Scythians were killed and assimilated by the Germanic migration period. The Slavs, most likely from the Dnieper, came in during the previously mentioned migration period. They settled the Balkans, Polish plains, and the North Carpathian Mountains in the 400s. The Slavs weren't as violent as Greco-Roman scholars would suggest, but they probably lived under a kingship of some sort. These are just theories, of course, because, again, there are very few primary sources. Slavic religion was a kind of paganism with many gods. A few of them were Perun, Yarilo, and Lada. Perun was like Thor and Zeus, a leader of the gods, and he had abilities relating to thunder. Yarilo was the god of youth and spring, and his implied lover, Lada, was the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. From the 900s, the Slavs began to culturally split, making many peoples of today. The Rus Khaganate was a coalition of cities under the symbolic rule of a Khagan king. It was founded in the 830s or 40s. It was probably headquartered at Novgorod or Aldizia Ladoga, and was centered around trade between Vikings and peoples around the Caspian. It was preceded by Scandinavian villages and forts, and also had Finn ancestors and the Rus. It was maybe founded by a powerful Viking, and he adopted the title Khagan to emulate the impressive Khazars. Subjects hunted animals, traded fur, and didn't farm. Most governing went not to the Khagan, but Khagan Bek, who might have usually been Rus. And the Khagan lived a life of pleasure, with a jeweled home. Culture was mostly Scandinavian, and people were cremated and then buried with their things and favored wife. And the prestige of this was equal to your nobility. The fall of the state was caused by the beginning of Christianization. The Viking Khagan probably did this to secure trade relations with East Rome, but the pagan Finns and Rus were threatened by this. They in turn expelled the Scandinavians in the 860s, and anarchy followed in the next decades until Rurik, the founder of the longest Russian dynasty, came, but that's a story for another time. While we're here, let's talk about geography of this area. The European plain stretches from North France to the Urals, separating Europe from Asia. These plains are extremely fertile, but they also welcome invaders into the countries with them, like the Mongols, Napoleon, or the Nazis. The Carpathians are a natural wall stopping all in their path, and killing many via hypothermia. The Baltic area can get as cold as 23 Fahrenheit and only as hot as 64. The Polish plains are divided mainly by the Vistula River, which flows from the modern Czech-Slovak border in the High Carpathians to the Baltic Sea. Modern Finland was historically known as the land of lakes, and the lake density is generally higher in the south and to a bit of lesser degree in the east. And the Gulf of Finland and Arctic shores are prone to having frozen beaches outside of summer. Most of modern Russia's coast is unsuitable for projecting naval power. Well, unfortunately, Crimea sort of is. The Caucasus divide the Near East and Russia, and are very good at trapping many peoples, leaving the many ethnicities there today. West Russia is full of rivers and famously gets very cold. The Siberian taiga swamp forest is east. So we learned the cultures of the Scythians and Slavs, discovered the foggy history of the Rus Khaganate, and got you a B in European geography. Not many teachers dare go to tribal civilizations, but it can be fun. Next, we'll cover the Kievan Rus, the first real Russian realm. See you then.